Third, welcome to our third session uh, for the teenager yoga program called Think of Something Beautiful. And in this series of workshops, we are exploring how to help teenagers develop better mental health. And the idea is that by helping young adolescents think about why they think the things and how they think the things, that we also can inspire them ways to manage their thinking in a better way. And so this is the idea is that we can maybe help children make better choices and less violence, maybe less drug abuse or alcohol abuse, maybe more responsible relationships with boys and girls, and in general, be a happier person. Okay, so the foundation for this course is yoga psychology, and yoga offers actually a very beautiful framework for looking at the mind. And in yoga, actually, we say the mind is a composite of different aspects. So far, we have discussed the earth aspect of our personality. And I hope you still remember that time we said that it's so important for children to develop better self-knowledge so that they can have clearer idea what they really want. And if they live a life that is not in harmony with their foundational earth qualities, they suffer. Then last week we talked about the water aspect of our personality, means our social connections, and how we deal with when we get rejected or humiliated or abused. And we also discussed the other aspect is that how can we prevent abusing others. And that time we talked about prejudice and bias, and our solution was universal love. And so we have to learn to love everybody in equal way and have we call that universal love. Now today we are going to talk about the fire personality. And actually the fire personality is the story of our independence. So we are maturing, and we have physical security, we have our social connections, our family, our friends. Here we want to stand up for ourselves. We control our own destiny. Now, as an introduction to the qualities that we want to discuss, I thought about one story that is very suitable here, and that is the story of Pinocchio. I have sent this to your chat group, and I hope you can look at it. I didn't send you to Malaysia. Never mind. Here there's Pinocchio, and on the periphery there's 10 qualities. You can say emotional expressions, and I want to tell the story of Pinocchio, and I want to ask you to choose. Every time I will stop the story, and I want you to choose which of these 10 qualities I'm talking about, or the story is talking about. Okay, so it's just a summary. It's not a whole story, because the whole story is really long. So the story goes, a poor man named Geppetto. He got a piece of wood from his neighboring carpenter. And he looked at the wood and he wanted to make himself a puppet. And he was thinking, I can earn some income from playing with the puppet. Now he started to carve the wood, and out of the wood there comes a little boy named Pinocchio. And Pinocchio begins to abuse the man. Now, which one of these 10 reflects that emotion? Anybody, please try to give me the idea. I will send it to anybody. Any idea whose emotion this is? Which emotion this is? Anybody? Why so quiet? Shihui, I sent you. Please, if you can forward to your chat group. So, anybody, any idea?
There is in the chat, Rudra Mohan. Can
Yeah.
see in the chat, yeah.
Which one? Which one? He is abusing the carpenter. Which emotion is that? I will help you read, okay? Staticity, attachment, peevishness, fear, shame, slender, ambition. I think you can call slender or maybe peevishness also. Either way, okay? I think here maybe more suitable is peevishness. Okay, we continue. Thank you. We continue. So once he got his feet, Pinocchio started to run away. Now the carpenter, Geppetto, he wanted to save Pinocchio and bring him back home. But when the police saw him holding the little Pinocchio, the police thought he was kidnapping the little boy, so they locked him up. So Pinocchio went home alone. And he was by himself, and there was the cricket. I don't know if you remember the story. There's a cricket in the story, and the cricket gave him advice. And Pinocchio got upset and threw the hammer at the cricket, and the cricket died. Which emotion is that?
Fear.
Okay, any other suggestion? He is angry to the point that he wants to just hatred. Yeah. Hatred means you are angry to the point you want the other person or the other party to suffer. Okay, so it's very, very heavy. All right, so so far we got peevishness, means bad temper, scolding, and we got hatred. We continue the story. So Pinocchio was not listening. His father came back, but Pinocchio didn't listen to him. And he became friends with Fox and Cat, and they were always teaching him the bad things. Now, which emotion is that connection? He follows Fox and Cat. Any ideas for which emotion this represents? So we have done peevishness, we have done hatred, there is shame, slender, ambition, melancholy, jealousy, staticity, and blind attachment. Which one would you choose?
The tennis.
It will come later. I think in this setup, the next one, blind attachment, means to say you follow somebody without any consideration. You follow blindly. And so he goes with Fox and Cat. They are bad guys. They do the bad things. Anybody who reads the story, in your heart you feel already so upset. Why does he follow Fox and Cat? Okay, blind attachment. And you will see in this story there will be many. This will be come back again and again. Finally, Pinocchio has some money, and Fox and Cat try to get his money, and they hang him to get his money. Now, I'll help you in this one. In the stories, and for example, in the fairy tales, you have Sleeping Beauty or Snow White. They go into this state of coma, and they're not moving. They're just, we call that staticity. So in this case, Fox and Cat, they hang a Pinocchio, and so you can say that is his state of staticity. Well, luckily, the fairy saves Pinocchio at the last moment. And Pinocchio is asked about the gold pieces. And he says bad things about others who took his money. Now, in this case, if you speak bad language about others, which emotion would that be? Any suggestion? Which one?
Slander.
Yeah, slender, that's right. And so actually, slender comes up in this story. Thank you, Didi. So Pinocchio, again, he follows Fox and Cat, okay? And again, blind attachment. And Pinocchio gets saved again by the fairy, and the fairy says Pinocchio should stay with her. And she says, for 1 year, if you go to school, I am going to make you into a real boy. Now, Pinocchio worked very hard, and he was #1 in the school. So in this one, which one is working hard? Which emotion would you put?
Ambition.
Yeah, ambition, that's right. And so he works very hard, but then he falls in with Fox and Cat, and they take him to Toyland, where you don't need to study, you only can play. So again, blind attachment. Then Fox and Cat, I just make up the story a little to get all the elements. Fox and Cat show him some very rich people. And he says, you also can be rich. You have to plant your money in the soil, and it will grow the money tree. So actually, I would use that for jealousy, okay? And the next one is that he is in Thailand, he becomes a donkey. And so when he sees himself that he has donkey ears, what emotion does he feel? He feels very bad about himself, and he feels he is a failure. He has shame. That's right. So here you got shame in the story. And finally, he wants to go home. He wants to see his father. And he finds his father is not at home. So he becomes very sad. So which emotion is that in these 10 emotions?
Melancholy.
Yeah, melancholy. And finally, he goes looking for his father, and he comes to the ocean, and he gets swallowed in a shark's belly, and that's where he finds his father. And actually in the process you can bring in fear and that he is lost without his father, and finally he follows his father and he goes home, and the fairy makes him into a real boy. I tell you this story because it illustrates so much the fire personality. Pinocchio gets independence. He becomes he's free to do what he likes, but he doesn't want to follow any values. He doesn't want to follow anybody's advice. He wants to be free. And this story, and the author of this story in Italy, the author was famous for this kind of stories and teaching children that, okay, you have to go to school, you have to learn something, you have to follow your parents, and then you become a really good person. But I like this story because it covers the 10 values and the 10 emotions that we that connect with in this fire personality. Now, I want to explore a little bit more with you about the nature of these fire emotions. And just like we have 6 water emotions, we have 4 earth emotions, we have 10 fire emotions. And in the yoga psychology, it is said that these basically are unconscious patterns. And these unconscious patterns, everybody has them. Okay? So if you give me freedom, I to do what I like, and I'm only guided by my I want to do something, then that freedom in those, whatever I do something, or I will overwork, or I will feel shame, or I will feel other people do better than me, I become jealous, or I see maybe others are more successful. If I only judge by this fire personality, I develop hatred, or I develop some of these basic patterns. Okay, and these patterns, we haven't discussed this much, but for example, a goose baby, when it comes out of the egg, the first living thing the goose baby sees, he says, "This is my mother." And so he decides, this is my mother, and the rest of his life, he will only follow that mother. So for example, if he grows up, the first thing he sees is a cat, he will follow the cat. He will sleep with the cat, he will play like a cat, he will drink milk like a cat. And I saw one movie, and this was the mother goose came, and she was trying to teach the little goose, "You're not a cat, you are a goose." She could not accept. And so these patterns, these unconscious patterns, are very difficult to change. So once we make a conscious decision, this is my mother, then for the rest of the life, they're going to follow the mother. So for example, there is a kind of fish, and the male fish has a red belly. So anytime this fish sees another red belly, he will start to fight with the other fish, because it's an unconscious pattern. So if you put an object with a red belly, the fish will see the red belly, attack the belly. So it's an unconscious pattern. He's blind. And just like when we see a child, we see a big head, or maybe small head, big eyes. we see a child's face, we feel love. Okay, we feel connection. It's an unconscious pattern we human beings also have. And so these patterns, once they are activated, they influence our decisions in life. So if we want to train people to make better choices, we have to teach them how to deal with these unconscious patterns. And if you are trained from young age to that you can hate. And for example, in my family, I never saw my father and mother hate other people. So I was very fortunate. I didn't learn to hate from a young age. But in other families, and maybe people will tell you that we should hate this person, or because they have different skin, or maybe because they are different other appearance. And so these concepts I never learned when I was young. But in many families and many societies, their children learn hatred. And so if you grow up in a country where there is war, and you see violence and destruction, I think you're going to hate the people who are doing this. And so these patterns, they become influence our decision making. And the idea of this think of something beautiful is to break these bad patterns. And so we have to explore the values, these emotions, and we have to help children understand what is hate and what can I hate and why should I hate? Should I hate a person or should I hate the action? And if, for example, here we have the sense of shame. And so I didn't send you the cards because I'm afraid you get too many things. But this is the picture I use for the cards for the teenagers. And this is shame. And so he's a loser. His actions are not successful. Now here again, we have to talk to the children. Is how do you judge yourself? And so this is how do you measure your sense of success? Also amongst these patterns, there is what we call peevishness, and I call the critic. And so the critic means you criticize others, you also criticize yourself. And somebody who is not successful, maybe like Pinocchio, finally he goes to school, he works very hard. He becomes what we could call a workaholic. And he overdoes it. Okay, so he's very strong in that. So it's possible. You work hard is good, but don't overwork. Of course, we have sadness, we have jealousy, and staticity. I think this is a good thing to discuss. I didn't color this one. Staticity here means you don't know where to go. And so in the story, Pinocchio gets hanged. He didn't die, but he got hanged. And so he's not alive and he is not dead. So he is static. He is stuck in between. And so the idea is that, again, we tell our students that you're an independent person. Any of these emotions can happen to you. How do you deal with it and what do they mean? And finally, you can fear. Here, the fear is actually the foundation for courage. And without fear, there is also no courage. You cannot be brave if you are not fearful. You overcome your fear and you deal with it. So here he he is the fear is trying to hold him back, but he moves forward, and he looks for his father and wants to stay with him and care for him. And so in this one story, actually it's very nice. We can find all the 10 emotions which are can appear when people become independent. Now, in your resources, the first worksheet, we asked the children, said, okay, when you are free, to do what you like, and what kind of emotions do you think you will have? Now here, so you see what they come up with, and maybe they're excited and to do something by themselves. Maybe they are insecure, fearful. Maybe they don't know what to do because they always have listened to others. So you try to help them go through understanding whatever emotions they can come up with. And the second worksheet I sent you is that as we become independent, we cannot be like Pinocchio and just follow this one and follow that one. Fox and cat say, come, let's go there. And he stops everything. Pinocchio joins the puppet theater, and Pinocchio goes to Thailand. He forgets everything about father and mother, and he actually gets lost. So we have to have values. Now, if you go to the third worksheet, maybe that one, there's a big shield. And so we discuss with the children, like Pinocchio was careless and irresponsible, and he was not properly trained, and he became independent so quick. So he didn't learn values. Now, what protects you? What values can you to keep yourself safe? And so in the first our yoga values, I first would, what values do you actually have that keep you doing the right thing? And so maybe they say love for my parents, or maybe I don't want to hurt other people. And still from very young age, I had this feeling that whatever I do, please I don't want to hurt others. I don't need to become famous. I don't need to become rich. I just don't want to hurt. Since I was a small child, I have this feeling. I don't want to hurt anybody. And I was very lucky that, when I was 15, I had this independence. I don't want to hurt animals. I stopped eating meat. And my mother supported me. Because we had a Christmas party, and we had guests, and mother brought 4 chickens for 2 days. And I think we were something like 8, 9 people. And I said, Mom, from today I will not eat meat anymore. I don't want we kill 4 chickens for the stomach of these few people. And so what is the value that the children have in their hearts that speaks for them and protects them from going the wrong way? So the first step is independent emotions. The second step is what protects you in your independence, what guides you. And the third step is more comprehensive study of emotions. So in our yoga we have 10 emotions we call the values of love. And so the values of love, this covers all our basic principles that we follow in our daily life. And so don't hurt others, speak good words, don't steal, believe in good, simple life. So this is, usually we connect this with our actions. And then the next is our attitude. So keep clean, be thankful, help others, keep learning, and grow love. So this is a framework. It's up to you if you want to use this or not. The idea is that, we want children to discuss values. And if they come up with their own values, depends on the culture and their upbringing. And the main thing is help them understand that one day you're going to be totally free to make your own choices. And don't become like Pinocchio. And Pinocchio gets in trouble left and right, gives trouble to his parents, to his father, the fairy, and he gives trouble to actually everybody. Okay, so this is what I would discuss about values. Another aspect that we have here is in the fire personality. There are the fire emotions. There's hatred. And hatred is the foundation for anger, for violence, for conflict. And so here, I think we have to talk about managing our anger. And so in your worksheets, there is an escalator. And there are 4 steps. And so let's say first step is you are complaining to somebody. You're not happy with the other person and you start complaining. The second step is complaining becomes arguing. The third step is you're pushing and shouting. And the fourth step is fight. And there's a fifth step. The fifth step is the fight is the other person gets hurt and there is a new problem. And the anger escalator starts again. Okay, so it's an ongoing 1, 2, 3, 4, then something very bad happens, and then start again, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then something even worse happens, and then the worst happens. And so here we are discussing how can we manage our anger and conflicts. Now, I see I didn't send this to you in your worksheets, a little bit of pity. We have A, B, C, D. A means ask. And so we have 4 steps for conflict resolution. The first one, A, ask. What is the problem? Okay. The next step is B. B means brainstorm. How can we solve the problem? C is choose. Choose a way out. And which way out we want to use. And D is do it. So A is ask, B is brainstorm, C choose one of your ideas, and D do it. So again, this conflict resolution is something that we learn as we grow up. And I think for teenagers, this is a very important skill. And to know how to manage conflicts. And I don't know if schools teach that. If they don't teach, they can learn it in our yoga class. Now, actually for this conflict resolution, I have a very nice story, which is very suitable for this. And it's the story of the whale and the sandpiper. So here there is a whale, and here is the sandpiper. And the whale is in the ocean and he swims like a king of the ocean. Up the waves, down the waves. He is so free. He's not scared of anything. And the little sandpiper, he is at the beach. And when the water goes down, the little sandpiper, he runs down, he picks the little worms and the crabs, and then when the water comes up, the sandpiper runs away. So the whale is looking at that sandpiper, and he sees the sandpiper. He looks like he's scared of the water. So when the water is down, he goes down, picks the worms, picks the crabs. When the water comes up, he runs back. And the whale says, you creatures of the sky, you are so weak. You are scared of the sea. Ho, ho, ho. We, creatures of the sea, are so powerful. And the little sandpiper said, whale, I can see you are big and strong, but I'm not scared. And we birds, we are brave. He says, but look at yourself, says the whale. When the water goes down, you go. And when the water comes, you run away. You creatures of the sky, you are scared. And the sandpiper said, no, we are so strong. So, he says, the whale says, no, we creatures of the sea are so strong. Now the sandpiper said, listen, I'm going to show you. And the sandpiper called the owls, and he called the blackbirds, and he called the seagulls, and he said, look at us. We are so strong. And the whale said, oh my God, there are a lot of birds in the sky. And he said, we are strong. And he called all the creatures of the sea. He called the seal, and he called the beautiful fish from deep down in the ocean. He called the crabs. And wow, the ocean was full of creatures of the sea. And the birds were looking and said, wow, these creatures of the sea, they are very strong. But the sandpiper was very proud. He said, look, we are strong. He called the flamingos, and he called the pelicans. He called the hummingbirds. Wow, the whole sky was black. There were birds everywhere. The whale said, oh my God, these birds of the sky are strong. But he was proud too. He says, sandpiper, let me show you. And he called the dolphins, and he called the sharks, and he called all the thousands and thousands and millions of little fish. And wow, the whole ocean was full of fish and crabs and dolphins and whales and sharks, and there were big waves full of fish. Now the sandpiper looked and said, wow, they are strong. So he called a meeting with all the birds, and he says, look, birds, they are strong, but we are stronger. We show them. We are going to drink the water. That will teach them. And all the birds said, good. And all the birds started putting water in their mouths and water in their bellies. And the water went down and down and down and down. And the whale and all the creatures of the sea said, oh no, we have to have a meeting. He says, they're drinking all the water. We have to drink, we have to take the soil. So all the creatures of the sea started swallowing the sand. So the birds had no more place to rest. And the birds were drinking the water, and the creatures of the sea were swallowing the soil and swallowing the soil, and there was no more land, and there was no more water. And the birds, they were very tired. They said, oh, there's no place to rest. what to do, what to do. And the fish was, oh, oh, no water, no water. We are going to die. When the sandpiper saw that all his birds were tired and had no more place to rest, and when the whale saw that all his creatures of the sea, they were looking for water and there's no more water. They couldn't breathe. They said, let's talk. And the whale said, Sandpiper, you, creatures of the sea, are strong. And the sandpiper said, you, creatures of the sea, are strong. He says, if we don't live together peacefully, we all die. So the creatures of the sea said, we'll give you back our soil, the soil. And all the birds of the sky, they said, we will give back all the water. And we have to live together in peace. The end of this story, the story of the sandpiper and the whale. And so here again, conflict resolution. And the fire emotions, there is anger, there is violence, it cannot work. And so the idea is that by talking about the emotions, we learn to manage them. By talking about the consequences of not managing emotions, we can develop better discussions about conflict resolutions. And I think this is very practical and useful basic activities. Now, in your worksheet, there is one more activity I sent you, is what makes you angry? And so what makes you pop? And so here there's a picture of a bowl with popcorn. And here we ask the children to write what makes you upset and what makes you lose your temper, and how can you stop getting triggered? And so let's say maybe you get triggered if your brother takes your toys. And so many children have this problem at home. Or maybe if in the family there are other situations, maybe clothes or food or I cannot think of anything. It's a long time ago when I was with my brothers. We were always fighting. Anyway, the idea is that if we become more aware, maybe we can be more loving and tolerant and more peaceful. And in this fire emotions, basic focus is on anger and conflict resolution and the importance of values. And I would put my emphasis on this. And next week, when we talk about the heart and the air person, we talk about positive ideals. And so these are few basic ideas that I have for this. And so keep in mind, this is part of your yoga class, okay? So we still have to practice our poses with the children. And here we want to help children manage their stress. And you here in this is the second one. So the poses for the fire personality are here. Water and earth are here. And so the idea is that if children have an imbalance in their hormones, they have an imbalance in their emotions and their behavior. And then the third aspect means quiet time and love for everything. And I think that is also important to keep practicing. And like this, you have a proper balanced approach. Now, there's one more story I want to share with you. And this story is actually in your handout, The Dream Reader. So if you want to follow, I don't follow exactly the story, but anyway, so the story has three main characters. One is the dream reader, one is the king, and one is the snake. Now, the story goes that long time ago, there was a man, and he could read. Now, in those days, not many people could read. So everybody, they said, he is so amazing. Now, at the same time, but he was living far away from the king's palace. But the king, he had a dream. And he had a dream, and it was a very powerful dream. And he really wanted to know what was the meaning of the dream. He was dreaming that swords were falling from the sky. And he asked all his people in the palace, says, what is the meaning of this dream? And nobody could give him a good answer. Then the king heard about this reader, and he thought it's a dream reader. So he says, bring that man here. And he had to come from the village, and he was very scared to go to the king, because, you know, if the king is not happy with you, that's the end. So he was walking kind of slowly, and on the way there was a snake. And the reader saw the snake, and the snake said, you are going to the king. He says, yes, how do you know that? He says, because the king had a dream. He says, how do you know that? He says, say, I know. And the king's dream is, he was dreaming of swords falling from the sky. And the reader said, please tell me, what is the meaning of that dream? And he said, the meaning is that for 7 years there will be fighting in the country. But tell the king to be patient, it will pass. And the reader said, oh, thank you. But if the king gives me any treasure, I will share with you. He says, okay, I'll be waiting here for you. So he went to the palace and he went to the king. And the king said, are you the dream reader? He says, yes. And he says, I had a dream. He says, I know, your dream was about swords falling from the sky. And the king says, how do you know? And he says, you know, I'm a dream reader. He says, tell me, what is the meaning? And he said, for 7 years, there will be fighting in your country. But be patient, it will pass. The king was so happy. He gave him so much gold. And the man went home. And on the way home, he had to pass by the snake. But he was thinking, should I give this money and this gold to the snake? The snake is just moving in the dust, rubbing his belly in the dirt. The reader picked up some stones. When he came to the snake, he threw the stones at the snake, and the snake slithered away, and he went home. He made himself a big house. He got himself a nice garden, a nice farm. Everything was big and beautiful. Now, after 7 years, the fighting had stopped. But then the king got another dream. And this time, they're not swords falling from the sky, they're foxtails. And he asked his people in the palace, what is this dream about? And nobody could give him a good answer. So he said, call that dream reader. The dream reader, he had to come from the village. And he had to come and pass by the snake's house. And the snake was hiding. He called the snake. He says, snake, come out. He says, what's your problem? He says, I have to go to the king, and I don't know what is the... He says, I will not help you. This the other day you said you will share with me all your treasure. You didn't help me. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. He says, you threw stones at me. You hurt me. He says, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. This time when I get treasure, I will share with you. I will give you all. Tell me, what was the dream? He says, the dream was about foxtails. And what is the meaning of the dream? He says, for 7 years, people will tell lies in your country. But don't worry, it will pass. And then the reader said, thank you, thank you. And he said, I will come back and I will give you the treasure. And the snake went away and he went to the palace. And there was the king. And the king said, dream reader, you have come, you have to help me. He says, I know, your dream was about foxtails. Yes, how do you know? He says, this is my job. He says, what does it mean? It's for 7 years, people will tell lies. But don't worry, it will pass. And again, the king was so happy, gave a lot of treasure to the reader. And the reader was thinking, this time I will not pass by that snake's house. I will take another road and I will not share with him. And he went home. 7 years passed and the king had a third dream. This time the dream was about sticks falling from the sky. And he asked all the people in the palaces, what's the problem? And nobody could answer. So he said, call that reader. And the reader came from far away, and he was very scared to go to the king. And he passed by the snake. And the snake was hiding. And he called him, snake, snake, come out. He said, why should I come out? You're a liar. You hurt me and you're a liar. He said, no, this time I will give you everything. Help me. Tell me what was the king's dream. He said, you will really give the treasure to me. He said, I will give you the treasure. So the snake said, okay, the dream was about sticks falling from the sky. He says, what is the meaning? For 7 years, people will speak the truth. The country will prosper. He said, thank you, thank you. I will bring you all the money. And I will bring back all the money from my house and give it to you. So he went to the palace and there was the king, very anxious. And he said, what's the dream? The dream is about sticks. How do you know I'm a dream reader? It's my job. And so then he said, what is the meaning? He says, king, for 7 years, people will speak the truth. Your country will prosper. And the king was so happy. Again, he gave so much treasure to the reader. And the reader said, this time I will really give all my money to the snake. And he went to the snake and he called the snake and said, snake, I brought you all my treasure. And I'm going to bring all the treasure from my home. And the snake said, you fool, I don't want any of your treasure. He says, what's wrong? He says, I'm sorry, I was bad. He says, yes. He said the snake, you are somebody who has no values. The first time when you came, you threw stones because everybody in the country was fighting. So you are fighting me. The second time you came, you were telling a lie. And you were telling lie because the whole country was cheating and lying. Now, the whole country is truthful and honest. And you also have become honest. But actually, I can see you only do what others around you do. You don't do what you believe in. He says, I don't want anything from a man like you. And the snake went away and he went back thinking. I like this story because it shows so much that, we have to have a principle. We cannot just go with the wind. And if the wind goes this way, we do this. If the wind goes the other way, we go do that. We have to have some values. We have to have some basic principles. Now, how far you go with your students with this is up to you. How you want to introduce the values. I think it doesn't matter. Respect is a good value. Obedience to parents is a good value, and you have to look at your culture. If you want to give your students a framework, okay, then make a list. What are the values everybody decides to follow? And in some schools, and in the beginning of the semester, they make a list and they stick this on the wall, and these are the values of our classroom. These are the values of my school. So everybody agrees to these values and everybody wants to follow these values. And if classmates see that somebody is not following the values, they have a point to bring up, and they can say, hey, you're not following the values. So I think this story, especially for teenagers, is, I feel, very powerful. And stand for something, and don't just follow your ambition, your selfishness. And the fire qualities, they need some management. Okay, I think today I managed. Oh, sorry. Today I try to manage the time. I don't know if anybody has any questions or suggestions or something wants to share. Anybody who wants to say something? Emmy, you want to say something? Emmy?
Namaskar.
Namaskar. Didi namaskar.
Yeah, I like to say something. I feel this is not only for the teenager. I feel it is also for us. I mean, especially for myself. I feel this, even though we grow up in the place that we got some value in our life, but as we grow up, the environment influence us, and a lot of time we lost our value. So I feel really to refresh, and also it's so deep. I feel, it's so good for us. I mean, for myself. Thank you.
No, thank you, Didi. Actually, I also feel, every time I can share this with others, I feel it helps me as a person. I shouldn't be stuck in my ambition or my, personal fire personality. I should be more universal. And if you can understand that these are unconscious forces. So if we don't have a higher connection, deeper connection with ourselves, it's very easy to get stuck. And society today, like you said, is basically water and fire. And in some parts of the world, fighting is encouraged. And so they see that as a sign of dynamism and individuality. In our tradition we need dynamism, but it needs to be tempered. So that's why, if you look at many traditional cultures, teenagers is the time children would be initiated in the spiritual traditions of their own society. And the Jewish people, basically all over the world, if somebody reaches puberty, they are being initiated to become a member of their own spiritual traditions. So they know the danger of the fire personality. And some of my yoga friends, they say that actually the the water personality is dangerous because it can be so destructive. But much of that destruction is towards ourselves. And so there is depression, there's suicide, there is, of course, there can be sadism, there can be even like genocide. All these serial killers, all this is all second chakra, the water personality. But the third, the fire person, is actually, if it's not controlled, not directed, it becomes social, on a problem on a large scale. And so if a person has a big ambition that, what you see sometimes, one country attacking another country, and they have this ambition, and it's really like the whale and the sandpiper, they can fight till there's no end. So, yeah, this is our education is very important, and we can prevent these problems. Anybody else wants to share something or say something? Then I think for today, this is all we want to share. And thank you for joining. And then see you next week.